The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Pat Scott. Hi, Pat.
Hi there.
And Jack Barazzini. Hi, Jack.
How's it going?
Very well, thanks. Before we get into the topics today, if you'll indulge me for a moment, I want to promote another new podcast that's on the StarQuest Network. And it's near and dear to my heart because it's called Raising the Bets, and it's a podcast that I do with my wife, Melanie, and it's our family podcast. We talk about what's going on with our family. We're a homeschooling family of 5 kids outside of Boston, where we have all kinds of fun adventures, and we'll talk about things like what we're cooking and books we're reading and some of the interesting discussions that we have in our family or as a couple. Like this week, we might be talking about how to make a livable neighborhood. What makes a neighborhood a good, livable community for the people who live in it? So that's as a bit of a preview. So it's called Raising the Bets. You can find it at sqpn.com/bets. That's 2 T's, BETTS. And there'll be a link in the show notes for the show as well. So if you go check it out, I'd appreciate it. So our first segment today, our first topic, we're going to be talking about something a little interesting. Maybe you haven't thought about it. You all might have, a lot of people now have an AI or smart assistant of some sort in their home. I have an Amazon Echo nearby. We'll call her the A lady. Or you might have a Google Home, the G lady, or the S lady in your Apple devices. And which is very funny because you can't say their names because they'll all jump up and start talking to you at once. But one of the things that kind of comes up about is we have I'm of the age where this is like living in the Jetsons. I mean, this is so futuristic to me. You know, when I was a kid, the idea that I could talk to the house and it was respond, that was science fiction. But now we have these things and they've become part of our lives. And some people have started wondering, should we be polite to our smart assistants? Now, this has come up before, and in fact, I think we had a very quick discussion about this with Thomas and Herho once. And but I want to come back to this and do a little bit more of a discussion and talk about, is it important to be polite to your smart devices when you converse with them? And there are different sides of this and some good arguments on either side. So first, I just want to lay it out to both of you, just to throw it out there first. What do you think? Should we say please and thank you and be polite to the AIs in our home? Or is it just, they're just devices and machines and it doesn't matter? And in fact, some people say because they're devices and machines, we should not treat them like we would persons. So that we don't confuse. So, Jack, what do you think?
So I think for me, and I think for most adults, it's easy for us to differentiate between an AI and a person because most of us haven't grown up with that kind of technology. But I think about it a lot for my kid. Like if I'm using my phone around my kid, I tend to say please and thank you to it just because for him to see you talking to someone and then to not be polite, that doesn't reinforce that behavior you want with kids. And they're not really able to differentiate at that point, which also raises a weird question about how to teach your kids that this computer that is talking to them is not actually a person. But I think that for kids, at least, it can be beneficial to be polite.
Okay. Pat, what do you think? What is your take on this?
Well, I agree that I believe it's a good example for kids, but I find myself when I'm telling Alexa I'm going to sleep, good night, and she says something, I say thank you. And I don't know what is making me do that, except just maybe the age I grew up in, that you said thank you. Now, I don't always say, please tell me something, but I often will say thank you. And she usually says, I am here to serve. Or something like that.
Right. So I've been doing some research, and I've seen people come down on both sides of this. And one of the points of view says, I'm polite to my. This is from an article on The Verge from 2017 by Chaim Gartenberg, who says, I'm polite to my smart assistants because I want to be polite to people too, and reinforcing rude habits seems like a bad idea. And that's sort of I think what you both were saying was we should be polite to them because not because it matters to them, they're just machines and algorithms and programming, but it matters to us. It changes the way we behave and act changes us.
Right.
Would that be a fair characterization of your point of view, Jack?
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying, and it's going to be interesting to see how the conversation evolves when we get things like androids, where it's going to not only sound like a human but also look like a human.
Right, and because of those, the inability, as it gets harder and harder to distinguish between a real person and a machine. I'm trying to think of with my own kids. It doesn't appear to me that they're when they use the devices, they use the Echo mainly. That's the one that they usually talk to. It doesn't seem like they're treating it either especially rudely or much like a person. I think they just kind of, for them, it's become a thing where it's something it's just another way of giving commands to a thing. I grew up typing commands to a computer. They grow up talking to them, and it's just another way of getting a machine to respond. So it's interesting, once the machines start looking like people, whether that's going to make a difference.
And I guess you could talk about how I wonder if people thought the same thing when television was first coming out, where it looks like there's a person in that box, but there's not. And we all know, like, that's not a person. That hasn't really been an issue for people to adapt to that technology. So it may be something similar where it just doesn't end up becoming a big deal and we just adapt.
I was thinking of something else, too, that there are people who have had damaged vocal cords and that do use a synthesizer box to speak. I remember when I worked at the hospital years and years and years ago, we had somebody come to check out that had an artificial voice. And so I think if we err on the side of saying, I'm assuming I'm talking politely like I would talk to anybody else, whether it's a mechanical sounding voice or not, I think we're doing ourselves a favor and trying to provide a good influence.
That's a good point. Jack, I wanted to come back to something you said about the technology as it changes, and did people treat like TV differently? It reminded me of a story I heard from years ago, and I forget who told it to me. So I wish I could attribute it. But they said back in the day when Fulton Sheen was on TV, this guy's elderly aunt would dress up in her best dress and put on her pearls to sit and listen to, and watch the show, and would respond to the Archbishop Fulton Sheen on TV. And when the children acted up, she'd shush them and then say, "I apologize for their poor behavior."
Oh, wow.
So it could be a little bit of that. We're just trying to wrap our heads around a technology that is a lot. It simulates a way of interacting with people, or a relationship that we've had with other people that is different now. It looks like it, but it's not the same.
Right.
Besides, we should get used to being polite to our new overlords.
Yes, there's always that.
We don't want them to get mad. I was going to say, I grew up with Data, so that kind of, I guess that colors my opinion of AI.
That's true, right? Data from Star Trek, yeah. One of the things, so if I could, I'm going to try to summarize Thomas's argument here that he made when we talked about this, which is that it's important to make a distinction between the technology and people, and that we should not treat objects like people, because there's the danger of treating people like objects. What do you think of that argument? I mean, it's not this for me. There's a little bit of compelling argument in that, and I'd like to. I need to tease that out a little bit. But what do you think of that?
I think with most things, it's about moderation and just about how your behavior is. Like, I tend to, when I'm talking to my pets, I tend to be polite to them just because if I'm talking, I'm going to be polite. But yeah, I think it's important to remember that it is a tool. It's not a person we're talking to, and to not replace your human relationships with that. And I was just thinking about how I feel like nowadays we end up talking to our devices and then just texting our friends.
Right.
point.
That's
Good point.
true. This is true. Yeah, there's an article I'm going to link saying from so there's the one I mentioned from The Verge. There's another one from a website called Made for Voice. I'm trying to see if I didn't see the name of the person who wrote it here, but they take that opposite view where we shouldn't try to be polite with necessarily be polite with these devices. I think they kind of fall in the I'm not sure what to do, but I'm leaning against the enforcing polite behavior with them because of I think I think they were pushing from a technological standpoint, which is politeness adds um, uh, fuzziness or chaos into the interaction, the user
Mm-hmm.
interface with it, and so it means that the devices have to work harder to parse out what it is we're actually trying to say.
Right.
I think it's pretty easy, though, for Alexa or Siri to ignore please or to put it in a different category. I think that at least my interactions have shown that, yeah, there's a distinction there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people they're it was like for example when someone Googles they want to look something up on Google by typing. I think people even now they often type in sentences.
Yeah.
Please tell me
That's a
where I can
problem.
find etc. Where they're putting all this extra information in that is completely superfluous to the actual search that the system has to wade through to get to the key words that it wants to tell me where I can what the hours of business are for John's pub down on the corner, and it's got to figure out what you mean by that, where you just say business hours John's pub and address and you put the address.
Right.
That's a much simpler interaction. So I thought that was an interesting way of approaching it. It's not so much from the sociological relational, but from a computer user interface question. So there's that one. There's that level of concern.
Well, I do understand the possibility that a child might not understand that that is a learning device or that is a AI device. I had a nephew that had an hour long conversation with Alexa, and the next day my brother got two pair of cheerleader boots in the mail from Amazon because in the conversation that he found the transcript for, he actually had been talking with Alexa about the cheerleaders that were on the screen and about their boots and how pretty they are and all that type of thing. And so he had to put a code to say, here's a code that I use when I really want to order something.
Nice.
Well, in fact, that's an interesting point you make because I have an article here from last year that Amazon it had implemented these free time parental controls in its Echo devices, and one of and by the way, we have actually had people request that when we talk about these things, we don't use the actual wake words. So
Yes.
because people's devices keep waking up and so that's why I keep trying to say Echo and Home Assistant or A Lady, but they implemented these free time parental controls, and one of them was to do just that, to put a lock on ordering things through the device, which it makes eminent sense.
Reasonable.
Right.
Yeah.
But the other thing is it included this magic word feature, which again is trying to help train kids to be polite. So when a child says, "A lady, please tell me what 5 + 7 is," the voice not only gives them the correct answer, but then will add a positive reinforcement of the type, "By the way, thanks for asking so nicely," as a positive reinforcement to children. And it's an interesting. I mean, it appears to me that that's where Amazon wants us to go. And in fact, when you are polite, I find that sometimes I'll tell turn off the office lights as I'm going to bed, and we'll say. And they'll say, "I've turned off the lights for you." And I'll say, "Thanks," and they'll say, "You're welcome." Like you mentioned, Pat, and it's sort of I don't
It's a
know.
good feeling.
It makes it a more pleasant experience than just commanding something.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I kind of come down on the side of saying please and thank you.
Why not be polite? It doesn't
Right.
cost anything.
Right, exactly. But my dad trained me into that. So it's like from a very young age, it was always to say please and thank you, especially to people you don't know. When you're working with people who are doing something for you. So I will keep doing that in honor of my dad. So anything else you got on this, Jack?
Oh, just I figure when Skynet comes, at least I'll know I was nice.
That's right.
Lisa, may I have another? All right. I think that's a good discussion. So, folks, if you have an opinion on this, we'd love to hear it from you. You can email us at technology@sqpn.com, or you can go to our Facebook page or our Twitter, which is at SQPN. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, and leave a comment and let us know what you think. Should we be polite to these devices, or is it teaching us to treat objects like we treat human beings, and maybe making a confusion? I'd love to hear from you on what you think of that. So let's go into our second topic for this week, which is it's based on something I got from one of my Facebook friends who asked, what is the best phone ecosystem for someone like me who wears a hearing aid? And I said, honestly, the only person I know who wears hearing aids and uses them with my phone is my father-in-law, Randy. That's Pat's husband. And so I thought maybe we should talk about this. Jack, I don't know if you have any special insight or anything to offer here, but please feel free. But I thought, Pat, I'm sure you must have talked to some people and especially helped Randy pick out hearing aids and dealt with connecting with a phone when he went through that process. So I wonder if you could tell me, what do you think? Which is better, iPhone, Android, or is there even a difference for hearing aids?
Okay, originally the iPhone had the made for iPhone push because they're really big into disability and accessibility. And so they did a lot to make hearing aids compatible with their phone from the beginning. Android has been catching up, but because there are so many different models of Android and brands of phones, it's been real hard to come up with standards. But Google has just recently gone through a push where they say that they're going to work on something as a native thing for its operating system that's independent of the manufacturers and of the versions of Android. I guess you assume, though, you would have to have a fairly recent version to get that particular feature. At the time we got it, we already had an iPhone. So it was an older model, but the audiologist, who is extremely important in this process of picking out hearing aids, don't go to the local, discount place. You really need a good audiologist. So she talked from her experience with him about which hearing aids were out there, which ones worked best with iPhone, and which ones would work for him with his particular condition. So I think you have to start with the audiologist. But at this point, iPhones still have a larger work right out of the box type thing with most hearing aids. Where Android, there is a list of ones that do work with them and that are, it's much more compatible than it used to be. However, I just had a gentleman with a hearing aid that I saw last weekend that he basically said he had just switched from Android, which he loved, to iPhone because he was having so much trouble with his hearing aids. And his audiologist told him the same thing, that the Apple environment at this point is still much more accessible. And I would say, again, get one of the major brands, not an off brand, if you've got a problem with trying to connect it with a phone. Phonak and Widex, and there's a couple of others that are big name brands, and they have apps specifically made for them that work with your hearing aids. Most of them all, they're all Bluetooth, and the amount of problems sometimes there is with pairing and unpairing, and that's been
Right.
a real stress.
Right.
If they could ever come up with some other mechanism other than Bluetooth, that would be even better. But right now, that's what we've got.
It would be nice if Apple would license that W1 chip that they use in their AirPods that make it so easy to connect things via Bluetooth. I mean, even the AirPods have their issues sometimes, but it's so much better than Bluetooth has been just the regular old Bluetooth. So yeah, that's something to consider.
I also ran across an article which talked about that they're actually coming up with a type of technology that will work with any phone, not just a smartphone with Bluetooth, for some hearing aids. And I'll have to put that in the show notes. But basically, it was just saying that you didn't necessarily have to have an Android or an iPhone if you had this particular type of hearing aid. It was made for all phones type thing. So, but so far the Apple ones have Apple with his hearing aids have worked pretty well, and it's not just the hearing aids with the iPhone, but also they have devices that will let you hook it into your TV, and they have devices that would basically your PC or your Mac could talk to him. Although he's had some trouble with it's a very low frequency or very low power Bluetooth in the hearing aid, and his Mac Mini doesn't always pick it up. It doesn't always connect. But with the hearing aid and the phone, they work real well. And iPad also well.
So when it's connected to the phone, does it give you anything more than just being able to take a call or listen to the sound of a video? I mean, are there additional features that connected to a phone give you for a hearing aid? Does it give you I think I recall somewhere like that with the iPhone, it actually the phone itself will help pick up sound in a noisy
ambient sound.
Yeah.
There is something about oh dear, I'm trying to what the term was. It was not like living, but it was like active sound or something like that.
Live listen, I think it was.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, live listen. That you could either turn on or off. And most of the time, I know my husband would prefer to have ambient sounds turned off because they're so distracting for him. But yet, if you were in an environment where you still needed to hear those people in the office talking to you, even though you were listening on the phone, then yes, I could see where that could be real helpful. But I know a lot of hearing aids have a directionality that you can turn off anything coming from the rear, or you can make sure that it's focused in a very narrow path to help in a restaurant and things like that. But it's been invaluable for him being able to listen to scripture at the same time he's reading it, for instance, or to listen to podcasts or listen to lectures through his hearing aids rather than having to deal with trying to pump the volume up real high on a set of headphones.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Apple has really making strides, I know, because I have an iPhone, with their accessibility issues, and I'm looking forward to some of the stuff they've got coming up in the fall in iOS 13 and iPadOS with accessibility. They have a voice control where it'll put a numbered grid on the screen, and you can control things by having it touch within that grid. And so for people who have issues with use of their hands, especially I think folks maybe like with Parkinson's or any kind of tremors, or people whose they don't have sensations in their fingers, sometimes with some certain kinds of neuropathy. So that's a really excellent thing. So they got some really cool stuff coming in the fall for that. And so I really am grateful for how much these companies are doing to make these products accessible to a wide audience. It's really nice to see.
I have a client that I saw today that she had a stroke, and so she's partially paralyzed on one side of her body. And so it's very difficult for her to use her hands to control the iPhone, to double tap, or she can manage the squeezing it up to zoom in and out, but trying to get to the right icon or trying to get to one of those other, like push here and now copy and paste, those are things are beyond her. So I've got blind people who are my clients that totally use a phone, and they just run their fingers down it and it speaks to them, and they tap on the thing twice and off they go. But it's the people who have motion movement that I'm seeing more trouble with right now. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, hopefully that voiceover makes these things more accessible. And, to connect it back to our first segment, as these AIs, these smart assistants get better, we hopefully become less reliant on having to touch the screens and we can just command them to do what we need them to do.
Well, that's one of the things that we also worked with her today is the S lady, as well as the G device in her house, to be able to have her call her mom or call her aunt. And we had some things to go through setting those up. But yes, those are the things that are going to really help my clients with a disability.
I wonder how these devices do, the smart assistants do, with people who have speech problems.
Difficult,
Yeah.
or even accents. Scottish accents are real bad.
I think I saw a funny video about a Scottish a lady, which was very. Oh no, it was an elevator, a voice controlled elevator with two Scotsmen in it who could not get off the elevator. That was a good one. So okay, thank you so much. That was I think that was a good segment, and hopefully that will help some folks who might have been wondering about these things, especially with hearing aids. And so if you have questions, if you have any comments you'd like to add, or if you've got some information on this topic that we didn't cover, we'd love to hear from you. So technology@sqpn.com. So let's move on to our next segment. Then we're moving right along right now. I have to warn you folks. This is at this part of the summer. There's not a whole lot of actual tech news out there. I mean, there's still news out there. We'll be covering it as we go along, but the episodes might be a little shorter than we've had in the past as we cover some of these things, from week to week. And we've got some actually interesting topics coming up in the near future. I want to talk about. Coming up in future weeks soon, this issue of 911 on your smartphone and whether it can accurately bring emergency responders to your location. And there's been a case here in Boston of a woman who died sitting on a bench outside an emergency room of a hospital. Who she couldn't breathe and couldn't get inside, and dialed 911, and no one found her. It was too late, gosh. And because it sent the emergency personnel to the bottom of the hill 3 blocks away or something like that. It was like the accuracy of the location. So I want to talk about that coming up. There's some things having to do with fertility tracking apps and whether it's this idea that it's some nefarious idea that pro-lifers might be behind some of them, and therefore maybe some women are being told that maybe you shouldn't use these apps because pro-lifers are behind it. So we'll talk about that and some of the things I'd like to talk about. These deep fake videos that are coming out where we see they can make videos of people, of famous people, politicians, celebrities, CEOs, whatever, saying all kinds of things that they aren't actually saying. We're in that time period now where we've gone from photoshopping pictures to photoshopping essentially video, and that's kind of scary. So we get all these things coming up over the next few weeks where we want to talk about it. But this week we're just doing some of these topics we're doing now. I want to move on to something a little bit of a tips of the week segment. We're not going to do this all the time, but I thought I'd mention a couple different tips have come up. And Jack, I kind of sprung this on you because I didn't tell you ahead of time. But if you have a tip of the week that you want to contribute, I'll come back to you and you can let me know if you have it. But my first tip has to do with the Mac OS and the coming upgrade from the current operating system Mojave to Catalina, which is coming up this fall. Catalina is the operating system that Apple just revealed at its WWDC developer conference. And it's one of the things that it's going to do is, and Apple's been warning this for a while, is certain kinds of apps are going to stop working in the future. And maybe I can get one of you to explain in layman's terms what the difference is between a 32-bit app and a 64-bit app is. I don't know if either of you have that off the top of your head. Jack, what's the difference between a 32-bit and a 64?
It's basically the architecture behind the way the app is written. So 32-bit apps use 32-bit architecture, 64-bit apps use 64-bit architecture, and there can be some crossover, but basically it limits the processing power. And so a lot of companies at this point, this is the same thing on Windows and Mac, a lot of systems at this point just go with 64-bit. I run into that all the time at work with the different versions of Office where you cannot have them installed concurrently.
So is it sort of like if there's been unleaded gas and leaded gas, or premium gas, or diesel versus regular gas? Like you can't, there are some hybrid systems that'll run both kinds of fuel, but if you do that, it kind of holds the whole thing back. I mean, is that kind of what we're saying here?
Well, to me, it's almost more like you've got the difference between an 8-track, a cassette, and a DVD. You've got sometimes you've had devices that could run all of them, but as time goes on, it's dropping off the older devices that won't work anymore.
Okay.
And that's how I see it. Yeah.
And so 32-bit, staying compatible with 32-bit devices is holding back the 64-bit operating systems from being as powerful as they can be. I assume that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's just getting rid of a lot of legacy support.
Okay. So Apple has been warning folks for a while that, in fact, you may have, if you have a Mac, you might have been seeing these pop up. This software will not be run on a future version of the operating system. These sort of dire warnings to folks, and we don't know what that future is. They haven't really told us. Well, some developers are being a bit proactive about it and are starting to notify their users that as of if they upgrade to Catalina this fall or to one of the betas this summer, that their software will stop working. This older software that they haven't been updating, that they have no intention of updating. And sometimes people are reliant on this software to maintain certain, say, business functions, or people have been keeping their finance software in this very old package, this very old software package that hasn't been upgraded in years, but they didn't want to upgrade it yet. And getting to the point now where you've got to make a decision. Am I going to look for something new, or am I going to try to stick it out and keep this computer running on this old operating system as long as I can? But and we've seen this happen before. I did this for a while when Apple went from Mac OS 9 to Mac OS 10, and when we went from was it Carbon to they've had a few times where they've changed the architecture, and you had to make this leap with software, and you kind of hold back a while. The thing is it's not necessarily a good idea to hold back, because while I'm sure Apple will continue to make security upgrades and other things for Mojave for a while, they're not going to do it forever, and security upgrades are more important now than ever on our connected devices. It becomes less and less advisable to keep running older operating systems that aren't being patched and upgraded, and so it's a real important inflection point for us. I don't know how, if you guys have any insight in that for folks in general, but one of the ways you can see on a Mac anyway, whether you have 32-bit software, and I'm going to kind of walk you through this quickly, and you can try this on your computer. If you're not at your computer now, you can try it at home. I'll try to get a link to this in your in the show notes. But if you open up the Activity Monitor software, it's in the Utilities folder inside the Applications folder. And if you go to and you go to the CPU tab, and then in the menu go to View Columns, and there is a column that says, let's see, Kind, I think it is. Yes, Kind. And make sure that's checked. And then you'll see a column to the right side of the Activity Monitor window. You might have to scroll to the side to see it if your window's not big enough, or just make the window bigger. It'll say 64-bit or 32-bit. If you click on the header at the top that says Kind, it'll sort based on that column, and you might have to click it twice to get the 32-bit ones to the top. And if you have any 32-bit software, it'll show up there. So like right now I have 3 pieces of 32-bit software running, and this only shows you when it's running. It's not showing you everything possible on your hard drive. And I have, let's see, my Epson scanner monitor software, which I don't think I have that Epson software, Epson printer anymore. So I could probably get rid of that. I'm not worried about that. And Call Recorder Agent, which is a Skype recording software. That's actually pretty important, and I'm hoping that gets upgraded. And so I'm going to be keeping track of these things. There might be another way to look at what's on your system as well. Again, for your Mac and under Mojave and earlier, if you go to the the Apple menu, About This Mac, and then you go to, and I'm doing this on the fly because I just realized I think that this is here. I think it's It might be system report, but it might not be. Let me just double check here. Software. There's a software section, and I think it will. There's a section that says legacy software, and that might actually be what I'm looking for. It looks like it's probably going through everything. And yes, okay. So it'll go through and it will make a list of all. So it's calling legacy software, all the software that is 32-bit on your system. So I've got something from Adobe, which I'm gonna guess that they're gonna get right on that and fix it. A major company like Adobe, and let's see, Steam, which is from Valve. It's a game system, and so I've got several things. Very important is my audio editing software from Isotope. They better fix that, or we're not going to have podcasts come out to you soon. So these are all things that are going to have to get upgraded soon from the developers. In fact, let's see, it looks like iMovie has some elements to it from Apple, so they're still going to get that working. Now, again, it's not certain that all this software will stop working when Catalina comes out, but some of it, developers have started to warn people, like, look, this isn't going to work. I got an email from Aspire, which is a game maker, saying, hey, all of these games from the past we're not updating them to work on 64-bit. So if you upgrade to Catalina, these won't work. So just so you know, just so you're aware, if you've got some software in your system that's older, that you might want to either find updates for it, and if there aren't updates, start thinking about whether you want to hold off on upgrading or find an alternative piece of software that's up to date, and we'll do it for you. Very good. Anything you want to add to any of that? If I pretty much covered that.
No, I'm beginning to see clients that are asking me about that. So yeah, it's gonna start being important.
How is this different? Any different on Windows? Is Windows still supporting 32-bit software?
They are, and I don't think that's going to go away soon because Windows has such a big presence in the business and government communities, and so many of the programs, especially in government, are really old and archaic. So there's no way they're going to be able to move away from that anytime soon.
No, but there are a lot of my clients who have, say, Windows 7 machines, and they had already run through the hurdle of older software wouldn't work on Windows 7. Now they're looking at having to move to Windows 10, and there are certain versions of Office that will no longer run on Windows 10. So it's more like versions, not just 16, 32, 64-bit.
Right.
Okay. There's a lot of that compatibility issue already.
All right. Well, it's something to keep aware of, and keep in touch with your tech friends or a tech consultant who, especially if you have a business, a good tech consultant to help you sort this out. That's for sure. Pat, do you have a tip of the week for us? I saw you had mentioned something online that looked interesting.
Yes. Samsung evidently put out a Twitter notice telling people that they needed to be scanning their smart TVs for malware, and even had a little diagram of how you went through the menus to get to that point to scan it, because they have a built-in, quote, antivirus or malware scanner. And there was a great uproar in the people saying, well, my TV's going to get a virus? Well, evidently, they're running a version of an operating system. I thought it was Android, but it's not. And I had it just a second ago. But at any rate, they're some other operating system, and I don't know whether it's a Linux-based or what it is, but basically you could get malware. The likelihood is very small. And so they've removed their tweet, but I have a link that we can put in the show notes. If you want to know how to do it, there's a quick 1, 2, 3 how to get there and do the scan. But that, kind of brings up the whole Internet of Things and malware running on. I had a client that had a malware running on their home security system because it was Linux based, and he didn't have a password that was more than A, B, C, D, E. So we're going to see more of this. It's just that Samsung kind of freaks people out.
Yes, that would freak me out if I have to worry about a virus in my TV.
You already have people worrying about their TV listening to them.
Exactly. Well, well, that's the thing is, if your TV can listen to you and it can get a virus, maybe I shouldn't be worried about Samsung listening to me. Maybe I should be worried about some nefarious people otherwise listening in my house. Yeah, that is concerning. it actually brings to mind that how Apple mentioned again, coming back to Apple at their keynote about they're getting HomeKit enabled routers, and one of the things that that it will do is it's going to um, it can create a segregated Wi-Fi network just for your Internet of Things devices that are HomeKit compatible, so that they're not on the same network as your computers and phones and iPads and things like that. So hopefully the networking folks and these Internet of Things folks who kind of get on top of it, it really makes me in general, I try to stay away from off-brand or no-name Internet of Things devices because of this. But as we see, even the big names, well, I mean, the big names are concerned about it, and maybe they're doing more about it. So, all right. Well, that's a good tip, and I'm definitely gonna put the link to that in the show notes. Jack, like I said, I sprung this on you last minute. Did you have a tip for folks this week?
Yeah, I actually have one. If you use Office 365 either at work or at in your business, if you ever get an email that purports to be from Microsoft about your account to reset it, don't click any links in it. Honestly, if you get any emails about anything for Office 365, if you're at home, just go straight to the browser and log in with your password. Or if you're at work, just check with your IT person, because I've seen so many that purport to be from Microsoft for Office 365 that are links to malware.
Very good.
I'd like to add something to that. The statistic I saw today is that 1 in 100 emails that are going into businesses, especially, but even homes, are phishing.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big problem.
So it's a huge problem because there's several worms that are just now coming out that if people haven't patched and they click on one of these things, it can spread like wildfire.
Yeah. It definitely, you've got to, I mean, the people listening to this, you may be a sophisticated user, but I guarantee there are people in your lives who are not, and you need to help them and educate them that they need to not click on links in emails, even if they look like they come from people they know. Double check, make sure, call the person.
Always go to the website.
Always just go to the website, right? Yeah. I saw today that a what was it, a county government or town government in Florida is paying a ransomware ransom to get their files unlocked because somebody clicked on a link and then they got all their files locked by hackers. Gosh, I'm guessing someone had some stupid bad password. We talked about password security recently, so that's very, very good. So, yeah, always go to the website. So if you see something from your bank that says there's a problem with your account or that you need to check your account, don't click the link. Open your browser, type in the address, type in the Microsoft.com or type in whatever it is, but don't click the link.
Well, the other thing I've just seen recently is even if you think you're on a particular website, like I had a client with an Epson printer that he was on the Epson site looking for drivers. He got a pop-up saying, if you need more help, here, call this Epson hotline. It was not.
Ooh.
It was a malware, and it was a browser add-on that was redirecting and popping this stuff up. And so he called me after the guy got into his machine and made a mess.
Oh wow. Ouch. That's a good point. I had a friend who mentioned that they went to a website to read an article. It was just a regular article, and some of these websites want you to register, like to get a user ID and password in order to read their content or whatever. And that's one thing. But then they said they wanted them to install a browser extension in order to be able to use their site. And the person was asking, does this sound kosher? And I said, no, there is no reason a website should require you to install a browser extension, because if you install a browser extension, you are basically giving them inside the back door access to your web browser and what you're doing on everything you do on your browser potentially. Yeah, so
right.
that sort
redirect
of stuff.
You in a whole bit.
Yeah, and pop-ups, that sort of thing. So that's also good advice. Don't let be careful about browser extensions.
Just stick with AdBlock.
Yes,
AdBlock Plus and maybe Adobe.
Yeah,
and I use the Brave web browser, which is a version of Chrome, which is security conscious. So that's another good one. All right, very good. Those are some good tips. So let's move on to our picks of the week. Pat, what's your pick of the week?
I have a lot of clients that don't have a lot of data, but if they lost it, they'd be sad. And they're a lot of times they're elderly or low income people that really don't even think they can afford the $7 a month that Carbonite or one of these other backup services would do. And if you have a Google account, then you can use part of your 15 gigabytes of Google space to back up your documents in your desktop, either on a Mac or a PC. And of course, if you want to tell it to put all your photos in the cloud, you can also do that as well. But that usually takes people much over the 15 gigabytes free. But so for some of my clients, just setting them up a Google account, even if they didn't have one, and letting it do the backup and sync, at least gets their documents and desktop saved for them. The downloads are not there. Other things are not there, but at least they've got those things protected.
Very good.
And it's free.
Yep. It good, free, basic backup. Even a basic backup is better than no backup.
Right, and it's in the cloud, which means that it can't be destroyed by a fire or tornado.
Exactly. Excellent. That's a good one.
And I would add that for Google Photos, as long as you're not uploading the full size photo, you can upload unlimited photos. So as long as you do high quality other than full size, that's what I do with mine.
Yeah. Yes, I have my photos are in the Apple ecosystem, but I also have Google Photos backing up because my photos are precious, and I saved them. They're actually backed up in, I think, 4 places. They're in Amazon Glacier by way of my network attached storage. They're in Google Photos, and they're in iCloud. So,
and I have a copy in Dropbox.
That's right. So yeah, they're not going anywhere. Good advice. Good tips and picks. Jack, what's your pick of the week? I think this one's going to cost me money.
Yeah, this one, when you tell someone to spend $100 on a keyboard, most of the times they look at you like you're crazy. But honestly, I got a mechanical keyboard from WASD Keyboards, and it's been fantastic, and I would 100% recommend it. I think it runs between 100 to 129 for the base models, depending on like what keycaps you get. There's different options. And you can do custom colors. You can do custom text on yours. I had a friend who got one where it was all black keys, a black base, and then no letters on it at all, because apparently that's how he wants to type. But
wow,
it makes a difference, especially if you're typing a lot. It really makes a difference on your fingers, and it helps with carpal tunnel. So I would definitely recommend that.
Yes, I love mechanical switch keyboards. I've talked about it before on the show, and I've been asked, by folks, you haven't recommended one, and it's because I haven't yet settled on one that's perfect. Right now I'm using a Corsair mechanical keyboard, which I like, except it has this weird double typing thing where if I'm typing, it'll type keys twice, and it kind of drives me a little crazy. I have looked at the WASD, and those are the ones that I think if I were to splurge and buy one, that might be what I would go out and get. Yeah, and you can also pick from all the different Cherry switches, so
right,
you can customize. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have the MX Reds, and they're really nice. The only thing that I was slightly disappointed about is that I could not find a keycap color scheme that matched the L-Cars from Next Generation. But once I find that, it'll be perfect.
That is perfect. Yeah, I actually picked up the Cherry MX Switch tester. I have one of those here, so that
nice.
So I could test how each one sounds and feels. I mean, I'm on my keyboard all day long, like a lot of people are, and I want it to be perfect. So when I get around to getting the perfect keyboard, this might be the one to get. So that's a good pick. But I'll hold back and not buy it this week. So my pick is also somewhat keyboard related. So one of the things that for me is, again, I sit at this desk all day, editing, making podcasts, that sort of thing. I need to stand once in a while, and I can't afford to buy one of those mechanical desks, standing desks. So what I do is instead I have my computers and monitors are on Visa arms, the adjustable arms, so I can raise those up. But I have a portable laptop stand, and I have it here with me, next to me, and I keep it next to the desk, and it's articulated. I can adjust the arms. There's 3 pivot points on each leg on each side, and I can raise it up to the perfect height for me when I'm standing. I'm shorter than others people, so I have a different height requirement than other people do, and I can even get a nice tilt on it. And this one, if I was on a laptop, would be nice because it has fans built into it, and it's not that expensive, and it has even better. It has a little additional platform you can attach to either side, depending if you're lefty or righty, for your mouse or, in my case, trackpad, because you got to have a place to put that. You can't be bending over to reach for that while you're typing. So, and it's such a nice way to just like sometimes in the afternoon, I just want to stand for a little bit. And, sometimes after lunch, I need some more coffee. I'm feeling a little tired and dozy. It's warm in here. And I stand up for a little while, get some energy, that sort of thing, change my position. And that is perfect for it. So it's a portable laptop adjustable stand. There's a whole bunch of similar ones on Amazon. I'll put a link to the one that I bought. And let me see, what was it? It was $38.90. So I wanted something that was a little more sturdy. It's metal. It's aluminum, not plastic for the main part of it. So it's a little sturdier. So I think it'll last a little longer, and it doesn't bounce when I type on it, which is very important too. That would have been annoying. So I recommend checking it out if that's something that might be something you might want, might be useful to you. And when I'm done with it, when I want to sit back down again, I just take the keyboard off and I slide it back down to the floor next to my desk. And if I want to, I can fold it right up flat, and I could even fit it in my backpack if I wanted to take it somewhere. If I fold it all the way up, so it's a handy little device. So that's a portable laptop stand. So I think that does it for us this week. And I want to first, before we sign off, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology this week, including Dante V, Caroline K, Wendy T, Bradley J, and Cynthia A. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology and all the shows we do at StarQuest. And if you have any way that you could help us to continue this mission we have and for this show in particular, exploring technology from a Catholic point of view, we would really appreciate it if you would go to sqpn.com/give and do whatever you can. We really do appreciate that. So that's it from us. What did you think of our discussion of the various topics of our tips of the week, our picks of the week, about hearing aids and smartphones, or about being polite to your smart assistant? Let us know, like I said before, by visiting sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, and leave us some feedback there. Or you can send us an email to technology@sqpn.com, and you'll find all the relevant links for the discussion on our show notes on sqpn.com. Until next time, Jack Barazzini, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks, Tom.
And Pat Scott, thank you as well.
Thank you.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.